What's up, everybody? Welcome to Hollywood Unveiled, where we pull back the curtain on the Hollywood entertainment industry and get to know the people behind the magic. I'm Jake.
And I'm Logan.
And Logan, today our guest is an award-winning independent film and television producer with over 50 producing credits on IMDb and a daytime Emmy to show for it. Outside the film industry, she's releasing a premium, ready-to-drink cocktail line called Art Rev. Logan, our guest, is producer Anne Clements.
It's fantastic. Just hearing the different titles that she's been a part of and the connection she's made, like she's a fun get. She's
my God,
fun to talk to.
Yeah, and an incredible path to getting where she is today with like from her very first job on a movie set to where she is now. I mean, it's an incredible journey, and I'm so glad that we got to know a little bit more about it. I've been working with her for years, ever since a production of hers called The Cleaners for Crackle, and she'd already been producing for a long time before that, but it's been really something to see her career trajectory since I worked with her and just how she's really blown up over the past years, and it was an absolute pleasure catching up with her again.
Oh yeah, well let's jump right into it.
Yeah, let's do it. This is our interview with producer Anne Clements. Anne, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
We're doing all right. I believe we met way back when on Cleaners. I feel like was our first production together.
2011, maybe 2012.
That one was directed by Paul Layden, right? And written and directed by him. And I believe that's when I met you. I know you had been working quite a bit prior to that already, but I mean, just kind of following your career and what you've been doing since then has been really something to witness. It's been really, really cool. Where did it all begin? What got you pulled into the world of filmmaking and eventually producing?
I grew up in Boston and just always loved it. Rear Window, I think I remember watching that when I was like 8 and thinking, God, that'd be so cool to make movies. And just, wanting to get out to LA and growing up. And I was around the same time I knew very young that I was gay too. So you just think, moving to LA, that's where you're allowed, this is way before gay marriage and everything. So you're like, that's where you're allowed to be gay. LA seems wonderful, which it is. I don't live there anymore. But it's wonderful. But so that was like 8, 9, and I started volunteering, which seems kind of illegal now, at the local public access channel. Very young, which was awesome because, I could walk there.
They call it interning now, right? So
interning when you're like 12. Yeah. And you could walk especially. But it was great. I could walk down the street to the public access channel and everyone there was so friendly. And, you're now 15, 16 and you're learning how to, operate cameras and technical direct, and it was great. And around the same time, a TV show came on the Disney Channel called The New Mickey Mouse Club. And we had met, I had a kid living with me, living at our house, kind of like a brother, this kid, Sean. And we were fans of the show. And 5 of them turned into, they formed a band. And they were doing tours. They were opening up for like Color Me Bad and Taylor Dane, Vanilla Ice and all that. And we met them and befriended them back in the day. And we're just doing like all over the East Coast going to see them. And at the same time, the Mickey Mouse Club was having like a contest, record and submit your own music video. So we sent in a few videos. We took all the equipment from the public access channel. I was 16 years old. And we went to Boston and like Braintree and we shot a few videos, and there's a lot of bad dancing and lip syncing. And one of the videos won 2nd place and it aired forever on the Disney Channel. Forever. Wow. I remember being 21, 22. My mom still kept the subscription to the channel and she's like, there you are. And they would have these little moments in between the New Mickey Mouse Club and Kids Incorporated. Kids Incorporated, I think, aired first. And they'd have like a Mickey Mouse Club moment. And sometimes our video would be there. And I was like, oh, my goodness.
Can we still find this online?
Thankfully, I have VHS tapes. I have not found it online because when that aired, it was before. I mean, so many famous people came out of that show, but it was before the Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake era. Kerry Russell introduced the video. I remember that, which was really cool. And obviously in retrospect. But that led my parents going, because I kept saying I want to go to film school. And I grew up outside of Boston. We didn't know anyone in the industry. And, you're going to go to film school? That sounds expensive. You're going to go to LA? What? And after that experience, my mom was like, okay, yeah, we'll let the kid go to film school. So I applied to a bunch of them and ended up going to Emerson right there because the first semester I could commute, which begged them. I was like, I can't do this anymore. You want the whole like school experience. And we didn't have money or anything, but got tons of loans, and grandma helped out a little bit. And, I remember working the front desk at the dorms, and that's where I ended up. I met my wife there freshman year. We didn't get together till 2000. She'll murder me because this is being recorded. 2016. We got together again 2015, 2016. But yeah, I met her at 1994 at Emerson College. And Emerson was wonderful. They had a LA program, so you could go out to LA. They had many programs, but in LA one, where under the safety net of school, you could go out and do internships and all that. And I got 3 internships: Geffen Records, Scott Rudin at the Paramount lot, and MTV Films on the Paramount lot. And I'd say over the years, every single one of them has paid off in some way. Stayed in touch with people from them. I made a huge action movie for China with my friend Troy, who was my boss at MTV Films. And so that ended up being a great entryway into LA. And actually, it was Scott Rudin's office that got me a job working at Disney. And that only lasted about 6 weeks, but this kid, Jason Miller, was working for a producer on the Disney lot on like the first floor. And I remember I was on the 3rd floor. And that producer was going off to go do this movie called The Sixth Sense, and he needed an assistant. Mm-hmm. And the producer is Barry Mendel. And I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. But I had to get myself to Philadelphia and be hired as a local. But at that point, I'd had kind of the studio experience. I was still 21 years old, just like new to LA. And I was like, it'd be interesting to go back to the East Coast and, where closer to where I grew up and work on a movie. And I remember they delivered the script by a messenger, and it was a hard copy, because mm-hmm. That's what they did back then in 1998.
Were they at the time? It was his Shyamalan's first movie that broke, right? So they weren't like closely guarding the script back then like they do now with everything.
Not Scott Rudin's office was definitely closely guarding stuff, but no, I think with this it was just they messengered a mm-hmm. script over, and no, I don't. At the time, no one had any idea. I think Knight and the cast and producers did, but mm-hmm. No one knew. I remember that movie came out August 2nd of the following year, and wow, I don't think that you could have predicted what happened with The Sixth Sense. But so I ended up going to Philadelphia and literally packed up my car. I had 2 friends from Emerson happened to be visiting LA. And one was like, I need to get back to New York. I'll drive with you. We drove in like 3 days across country, found an apartment went to one of the universities in Pennsylvania. And like, they had like the little tabs and you pull the numbers, and found an apartment that way. And it worked on The Sixth Sense, which was, life altering. It was such a great experience to work on that movie and see Knight and Barry and Frank Marshall and just like learn from all those guys. That was my first movie that I worked on from beginning to end. And everyone was just very, open with information and like letting you be involved in meetings and sitting in and asking your opinion. And it was really nice. The whole crew, I think, there's a bunch of us that still do Zooms, like we shot that movie in the fall of 98 that still stay in touch. It was just it felt like a big family atmosphere. Knight would host dailies, like he took over the whole stage was an old stadium, if I remember correctly, in Philadelphia. And a room in that was created into a dailies room. So everyone was invited to go in, and like there'd be wine and pizza or whatever and go watch dailies. And it didn't matter if you're an assistant, a PA, or, department head. It was just a really nice like family atmosphere. And I remember Teamsters telling us, because it was myself, Frank Marshall's assistant, Sam Mercer, the UPM EP's assistant. We were all around the same age, and everyone kept telling us, it's not always like this. It's not always like this. We're like, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. This is a beautiful learning experience. And yeah, it was great. Barry then introduced me to a bunch of people when I came back to LA, and I started set deck coordinating. Before that was a union job for this amazing set decorator named Karen O'Hara, who's won Oscars, and did Spider-Man with her, the first one, Red Dragon, Christmas with the Cranks. And that was a great experience too, to learn budgets and learn the art department, because the art department's talking to every department, locations, transpo, you name it. So it was great to really see what different departments did. And at the time, you don't know it, but that's laying such a great foundation for producing.
Yeah. So actually, The Sixth Sense kind of kicked off this trend, it seems, with your career, going from these smaller independent kind of things to what we could arguably say are just celebrity-studded productions. What were some of the highlights of kind of that transition from independence to the bigger budget stuff?
Well, the first movie, I think, Quinceañera, nothing beats your first movie, because you have no idea what's going to happen during that. And if you told me that was going to win the jury and the audience award at Sundance when we were, had no money and running around Echo Park with, actors, our lead actress had only been Cleopatra in the school play. So that movie wasn't even SAG. So it was that kind of experience was pretty amazing. And we got that money based off a pitch the directors did, Richard and Wash, and then had to, wrote it real fast and then submitted to Sundance. And that kind of kicked off everything, and then took advantage of that experience. Once you come off winning both awards, just go bounce back and forth, New York, LA, who do you want to meet? Email everybody. And then obviously have other projects in your back pocket. But yeah, when people find out you made a movie for, under $500,000 and it won awards, you're thinking in your mind, oh, this is great. I'm going to get money now. And everyone else is thinking, oh, wow, that looked bigger than it was. We're going to call you because we want our budgets lower too, which is fine.
I've heard James Wan talk about something very similar, where he was saying, "Oh yeah, I thought and I guess this is the early 2000s or so, especially. There was a time where if you made a movie for basically nothing, that's when the phone rings and the studio calls and says, "Oh, well, you did great with that. Now let's give you more money and see what you can do." I feel like around the beginning of the 2000s onward, it was great, you did great. Now what can you do for less money?
Yeah. Yeah, I did a beautiful movie MTV called, now she's a very good friend, Maggie Molina. And they had a true story of Pedro Zamora, who's on The Real World San Francisco, passed away of AIDS. It was a beautiful scripted movie about his life. It took place over 20 years in Cuba, Miami, San Francisco, New York. And I read it and I remember watching, that show when it was on, and how he introduced a whole generation to AIDS. And I was like, this is fantastic. I'd be honored to be part of it. What do you think your budget is? And yeah, it was MTV looking to do it for under $1 million. I was like, okay, we did it.
You did it.
We did it. And that premiered in Toronto, which was great. But yeah, exactly. Shot it in Puerto Rico. And that was my first movie in Puerto Rico. And I've done a ton of movies and TV shows there ever since. So
I was going to say that anytime I see your social media, at least for a period of time, it was always another rough day at work, and I see the cocktail and the beach behind it and everything. I mean, you really set up camp out there for a while, didn't you?
Still, yeah. I have a movie going to shoot there in June. Yeah, shot a TV show called Neon that's airing on Netflix. We shot out there. 3 seasons of Startup. Fantasy Island for Fox was out there. Cleaners season 2.
Oh,
we did with you was out there.
You did Startup. I did Fantasy Island too with you. Yeah. And that was a blast.
And then The Oath, which was my first show with 50 Cent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know you have a whole circle of people that is just out there, it seems like, that you've really just worked with, and it seems like a bit of a family of crew that's out there in Puerto Rico that anytime I come on, I'm like, oh, I know those names.
No, it's just a great place to shoot. I remember when when I first got the script for Pedro, and I was like, I don't know how to do this for that amount of money. My old producing partner, Chris Panazon, had just gotten back from a trip to Puerto Rico. And he's like, I just got back we have to look into filming there. There's an amazing local producer and an infrastructure and crew. And I was like, this is when Detroit and Michigan was like the hype of everyone wanting to shoot there, and like, you know, so many productions going on, you couldn't get gear or crew, and you had to bring everything in. I'm like, we can't even get stuff in Michigan. You're telling me we're going to go to an island and there's like crew and equipment? And he was like, yep. And he was right. And now I, you know, convince all the naysayers, because I know it sounds crazy that you're going to go to an island and you're going to have a great experience, and, you know, use the US dollar. You don't need a passport, and you have gorgeous locations everywhere you turn. And
for the record, I come from an island where there is a film crew and team out there. So, you know, Hawaii, hey. You know.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Well, a lot of people try to go to Hawaii and then they realize it's a little expensive. And then,
there's that part.
they go check out Puerto Rico. But everyone just, it's hilarious when I hear the reasons why they're thinking of not going. And I'm like, that was me back in the day. I get it. But now it's just a wonderful place to shoot and great infrastructure, and we have several shoots going on at once.
Actually, with that, I'm kind of curious. So it seems like you've kind of now built, I think, like Jake kind of said, this team of like faces that you've kind of seen multiple times across multiple productions. What's it like working with a team that like you've assembled versus a production that you're just kind of brought into and just have to work with the team that's just kind of there?
Well, I mean, it's been I've done, I don't even know, like 31 movies, I think, including docs. I don't know, I have to look at. And I'd say a lot of them I developed and helped put together and figured out where to go. And then there was definitely the situations of last minute, hey, we're shooting this thing, and, you know, we need a producer or someone to oversee it that we trust for the money or something. So you're thrown into those situations. But then it's just really getting to know, you know, who's the crew, and each location you go to once you get outside New York, LA, and even when you are in New York and LA, like, I mean, I think there's just, what kind of environment are you going to create? There's so many bad stories you hear. You know, I've been at rap parties where I've had second ADs come up to me and say, thank you for treating me like a human being, which is like the saddest thing I've ever heard. And like, what?
Yeah, that's not what you want to hear.
What asshole producers have you been working with? So it's just, getting to know everybody, you know, making sure they know I'm not going to come in and like try to micromanage. Like, everyone's been brought to the table, hopefully, because of whatever their job is that they're bringing. And it's fun. I mean, it's crazy because you're always chasing a tax credit and you're always traveling, and that there's a lot of, that can be taxing, but at the same time, you know, I always say you could blindfold me, put me in a plane, you know, throw me out with a parachute, and within 10 minutes, I'll figure out, oh, there's somebody I could call to like go meet. You know, this business, you're constantly traveling, whether it's for shoots or for festivals or scouting, you know, it's always good. And there's always a new tax credit popping up.
Did you have any preconceived notions going into producing that were either dispelled or confirmed once you started doing it?
A good question. There's just so many different kinds of producers, right? So I always tell everyone, if you want to just work forever, just know stuff, because so many people get the title and don't understand physical production. Many don't understand post, and it's just about knowing stuff. So I think that's a very good question. I think it's a lot more work when you're overseeing, especially a movie. Ideally, a TV show, you have a bigger staff. There's like more in place. You have a studio, you have the network execs. But on an indie movie, I mean, you're doing everything. Like, I mean, Quinceañera, we were driving trucks. We couldn't afford an accountant, so we had an Excel spreadsheet. We were, you know, running around doing post. My friend Sean was the music supervisor and kind of the like production supervisor, and just doing absolutely everything. So I think it's just, you want to know a little bit about everything, because it's also another way of getting screwed, right? It's kind of like, if you don't understand how to manage the business, because each movie is like a new startup. It's new LLC, it's a new team, it's a new product. How are you going to sell it? How are you going to distribute it? Who are you making it for? And if you don't know what basic things cost when you travel and go to a different state or even a different country, that's how you're going to get swindled, right? It's like the old story of everyone wanting to own a bar or restaurant just because you think you know it because you've drank or ate at them for years. It's like, you got to know what things cost, And I often get mistaken for a line producer, and I take that as a compliment because that means whoever's saying that thinks, wow, she actually knows what she's talking about. Because you do. I went to one location, I won't say which one, and I started getting these like invoices, and I'm like, what is this? Like, a camera package should not cost this. Like, what are we doing? This should not cost this much. And then there was a few other things, and we realized some of the crew were paying off another production.
Oh,
like
wow.
Stuff that they owed, like for a smaller movie they'd made. Yeah.
I always appreciated when I worked with you that you really made it your business to understand VFX enough, at the very least, to know on set what would be a problem or what would cost more money in post. You really seem to really get a grasp on every department. To what degree do you do that? I mean, does that come from your time in, say, the set decorating too, or you've done other roles like that?
Yeah, I think it makes you appreciate people's jobs when you like have a basic understanding, and directors should too, because I've been on sets where the director's like, we're supposed to shoot in this room tomorrow and wants it repainted. Well, repainted, because I was in the art department, means you got to take out the furniture, you got to paint it, you got to let it dry, maybe do another coat, put the furniture back in. Like, we can't have this ready at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's like, so just if you have a basic understanding of what everyone's job is and some knowledge just by experience of what works, what doesn't, by no means can you know everything. That's why you have departments and, constantly learning after all these movies and all this time. There's always something new. I think every single shoot, it's like, oh, that's a new one. I didn't know that. But yeah, if you have a basic understanding, it just makes you make better informed decisions creatively, financially, across the board. You can just figure out, and sometimes having less money forces the issue. Like, well, why do we need that location? Why, what's so important about this scene? Why can't this information be moved to another scene? And oftentimes it makes the script better. And
as a VFX guy, I appreciate when somebody doesn't just go, well, why does it have to be shot here? Just throw up a green screen. You realize that's more expensive.
You will hear swearing. Yes, every single show, TV shows, and people who've been in this industry a lot longer than me, they're like, oh, no, don't worry, they'll fix it in post. And I'm like, I'm gonna lose my mind because I'm the asshole who's gonna be dealing with it 6 months from now. So I think if you've done an indie movie where you heard all that stuff and you're new, you don't know, and then, oh, wow, I'm supposed to be delivering this, but I have VFX issues, I have clearance issues, I have music issues, I have all this stuff that didn't happen. Now you're the one cleaning it up in time to like either premiere at a festival or, you have a distributor. Once you go through that pain, you're going to be really fast to say, no, we're going to figure it out right now.
I think there was a production that I was on. There might have been a case where, there was going to be a TV comp or something, and somebody had something on a table, and you're like, if you just move that 6 inches to the right, we won't have to rotoscope it in post, and it's going to cost more money to do that. So just recognizing things like that, I appreciate. So.
Oh, I know which project you're talking about. Yeah, there was a very large TV, and it looked fantastic, and I turned around, and I turned back around. Now there's a statue. But it's like a little, like twiggy, little, almost like the tree behind me, like a weird, just enough that I was like, what is that? Now it just made it a very expensive shot. Take it away.
Just increased it by just that much. So,
yeah. Or you just erase it. It added unnecessary work. Yeah. And unless you've gone through the pain of, so I think to go back, you guys had asked, or
preconceived notions,
preconceived notions.
Yeah.
Producing is not all champagne and red carpets. It is brutal. Post is brutal. Delivery. Once you get a distributor, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm like, no, you better have budgeted for you're going to have a huge list of stuff, and you better have planned properly in post that's there, or you're going to have to go back and have all that created, and like legal delivery and like, oh my goodness, credits. I don't care how much you stare at credits and you email everybody and make sure your department's there, make sure it's spelled right. Who are we forgetting? Let's start credits before we even do anything. Like day one of prep, somebody get out a sheet, we're starting credits. You will always forget somebody. You'll always misspell somebody. There'll always be something. It's just, yeah.
I had the unfortunate task of one time I was like, somebody asked me and I said, you know what? Yeah, I could do your crawl at the end. And I so regretted it like 5 minutes into it, because when you think you're done, it's like they say, oh, there's another name we got to. I'm like, you are going to release next week. What are you talking about?
How are you just now finding new names?
That was fun. Oh my goodness. Fantasy Island, I remember season 1, we would finish like on a Friday and it would air, or sometimes a Saturday, Sunday. Frankie at the post, and we posted that in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. He'd kill me because I think it was even once we delivered on a Monday and it aired on Tuesday. But yeah, just especially in TV when you're up against airing, deadlines like that with networks. Like, yeah, you have to do so much in prep to make sure you're not, Monday before it airs going, oh my goodness, there's a clearance question or there's.
I think I was working on shots on season 2 when episode 1 started airing, and something that might have been even. So I was like, oh, well, we better hurry up then.
Yeah, you just got to think outside the box too. I remember, I love Crackle, when it was part of Sony, and, love Sony TV. They've been good to me for so many years. I remember we were getting ready to shoot season 2 of The Oath, and season 1 had got hit by Hurricane Maria. And we went back and finished filming. But season 2, and I was getting married in Chicago, and they said, we prefer you're done filming by mid-August because of weather. And everything they said made sense, right? Just have a little buffer, because hurricane season is when it is, and global warming, whatever. But all the hurricanes, and we got hit mid-September. So like, let's have a buffer of mid-August. And that made sense, except they asked that question, I want to say it was May or June. And we're like, okay, well, the writer's room can't move up. We can't really move up the shoot because we won't be ready. So Francis LaSalle, the local producer in Puerto Rico, and I were just like, we only have so many days between now and mid-August. What do? We're like, okay, we double, triple shoot. We have 2-3 units going on at once. We break out stunt units. We have multiple episodes. We get clever how we book directors, but then you're sharing cast, and you don't want people working 20 hours a day, but you have 2 separate crews sharing a base camp. And like, hopefully the directors and they all were, everyone was lovely, but it's like, okay, we're going to shoot episode 2 here at this cafe. That's a cool, sidewalk to do the walk and talk in the next episode, and boom, get everybody there. So it's just, yeah, you always have to think outside the box. So yeah, producing is a lot more work than I ever expected. It's like every little, especially if you're in delivery and post, you're like every little frame, you just have to make sure is cleared and ready to go. Everyone's always like, oh, have you watched any movies this year? I've watched mine about 60 times in the last month, because you always see something new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there something that's like really stood out as surprising as a thing that like in the process of working on a movie or a series, you as a producer were like, wait, that's a thing we have to worry about? Or, oh, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, you'll always, no matter how, every investor, especially on indies, asks, like, what do you think is going to go wrong? We're like, they always want to know what you think the issues are going to be. And I always say, especially the last like 10, 15 years, I'm like, whatever I tell you right now is not going to be what happened. Yeah. That's going to be the issue.
It's not going to be the real thing.
Nope. It's going to be something none of us predicted. You couldn't have predicted COVID. You couldn't have predicted Hurricane Maria. You would have known, oh, I'm there during, the bad weather, but you just can't predict, an actor having an issue. An actor breaks up with the girlfriend, the boyfriend, they won't come out of the trailer. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen. That's going to delay you or cost money. And you just have to think on your feet. And every single shoot, you always lose a location, a hero location right before you're about to shoot. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how prepped you are. You will always lose the damn location. And you just can't let it break you. And so many directors, especially if they haven't done it enough, think that's the end of the world. And it's like, nope, let's get clever. How do we use this to our advantage? What do we do? Find a new one. Yep.
Make it work.
No, and it's, knowing how to work with people with different, personalities. And my wife, she's a psychologist at Johns Hopkins. That comes in handy.
She advise on production for that in that sense.
I've had executives joke, can't we put her on payroll? Half joke, I should say.
So you kind of talked about it in little kind of bits kind of throughout what you were just saying, but kind of talk us through your process, kind of all the way from like finding a production to the release date.
It's different. Sometimes a friend will just send me a script and, or my lawyer, Elsa Ramos, amazing. She'll send a script. Her and Tiffany Boyle, they sent me Stage Mother, which I loved, and we shot in Canada, and Chick Fight, actually, I got from them. And then it's changed, like now I don't even know if I could get Quinceañera like made these days. I think it would be a lot of, can't you have this star play the aunt and all that. So it's also, which is sad, it's also about what do I think, because I don't want to waste the director's time or writer's time. What can we actually, what's the path to getting it made? And do I have that? And do I have the bandwidth? And a lot of times it's I just don't have the bandwidth, but I think it's great and you should go talk to so-and-so or here's some ideas for it. So yeah, once I sign on to something, depends if it has a director. I mean, Chick Fight's a great example. It was a script I got when we were shooting Startup. And I love the concept and it needed a little bit of work and thought Paul was great Paul from Cleaners, because he does female voices great. He does action comedy like Cleaners was. So he and I started working on it with the writer. And got it to that place. And he's good friends with Malin Ackerman. So then that snowball happened and Malin came on and was so great and helpful, obviously, with cast and development. And she gets her hands dirty, which is great. She'll, some people get credits just as vanity and some are right there in the trenches and want to be helping you. And she's definitely one of the ones in the trenches. And then my friends at Yale, literally, we were just developing it. And then they called going, hey, we're really looking for a female-driven action comedy. We have money to put towards one. I'm like, got it. So it's just, who do I know who will finance it? Who are the right partners? Who's the right director? Who's the cast? Do we want a sales agent first? Each one is so different based on if it's a drama, comedy, action movie. And I always joke TV pays for my independent film habit because that's something. Don't ever expect to make money in independent film.
No. We don't do that for money.
It's especially as a producer, like if you're getting your movie independently financed, you have your budget, right? So unless the investors agree to get more money in and you know who that person's going to be, if you go $10 over, that, whose pocket does that come out of? That comes out of all the producers or post, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I do realize sometimes I'm a little late when some of these. Yeah. Regarding your process and everything, I mean, what's something that might be misunderstood by anybody who's not, say, a producer? Because sometimes the title of producer can be a little ambiguous. Like you said with Malin Ackerman, you said she gets in there, gets her hands dirty, actually does something. And some producers are there, like you said, it's a vanity title for some people, maybe. What would you say is something that would surprise somebody about what you do?
Well, that's an interesting question. Ash Christian, who you knew, mm-hmm. Ash and I would always talk about this because a lot of times the crew, you're friends with the crew, but you're also like the one in charge of safety and money and reporting to the studio or the investors. And a lot of times over the years, especially in the younger days, heard people talk about, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. And I'm thinking, well, I'm they. Like you're going to call the union? You should talk to us first, because that's like a lot of people don't understand it impacts. It always comes back to us. I mean, I think it's different. The TV is a lot different than independent film, but on independent film, you're on the LLC. And if someone wants to report to a union rather than talking to the producers. It has been funny over the years to hear the word, well, they didn't do this, they didn't pay me that, they didn't pay me that. And I'm like, you're complaining about me.
To me.
But you should ask me.
That's interesting. That's something I wouldn't have expected. Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't understand on indies, at least, how some producers are just going to be so involved in absolutely everything, like, because you have to be, or it's just not going to get done. There's not like posts, I just joke. And I even joke on TV because I'll hear, oh, I don't need to be involved in that. I don't need to do that. And I'm like, who does everyone think finishes the show? Like magical elves and like a god, like
yeah, they saw Gremlins. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard so many times, oh, the post producer does that. And I'm like, what?
You mean the producer that's there from pre through post? Yeah. That's you.
I'm like, you've come this far with this project and you're not going to be part of like music and VFX and art. Yeah. I mean, I've heard so many, it's all over the place.
Well, that's why the person typically accepting the best picture in that case is the producer, because they are there from the beginning to the end. They're the one that hires the director in many cases and hires everybody, right? Or even maybe conceptualized it even before it was a script.
Exactly. I've said that a couple of times. No, that's exactly. That's very, very true. And that's why they get that title. But a lot of people don't. They just think, oh, they're making tons of cash. And, I mean, indie movies, especially, I mean, Quinceañera personally cost me like a little over 30 grand in credit cards and stuff. And that was my first movie. But I was like, we don't have the budget to hire people in post. So I'm just going to have to learn and do it. And thank God, that paid off. I would say indie movies is like, we don't have kids, we have cats, but I imagine it's like having a kid where like you nurture it, you develop it. Finally, it's out one day on its own. You're like, wonderful. And then it calls you up like years later, it needs more money. That's an independent movie. There will always be something. There'll be the guy that played banjo or, the third guitar on a song you licensed who didn't get paid by the record label and is coming after you. I mean, we've had everything happen.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you are the faceless they that everybody keeps talking about. Because I think to that point, a lot of people want there to be like a reason, when something goes wrong and, might not be going well. Like you said, the first thing they say is, oh, they did this wrong. They did that wrong. And, they want to blame the faceless they of what's out there.
And usually there's a reason behind the madness. I mean, I've definitely been on sets where there hasn't been, but there's usually a reason for the madness. Like people are always complaining about the schedule, but they don't know that actor, there's always actor issues. There's, who knows what. There's a request from the network, the studio. There's usually a reason you're going back to locations, But yeah, it's hard to be that transparent all the time with the crew. They just are like, oh, whoever scheduled this is an idiot.
I remember a production manager on a shoot that I was on, and I think I was bringing something to his attention, and then he said, everybody thinks their problem is the biggest problem on set right now. Get in line.
Oh, that is 100% true. I mean, thankfully, there's been a lot of people, crew, actors who are very self-aware and know that's not the case, but sometimes it's, you get very involved in the department. I remember a camera AC once, he kept calling all week and I was like, oh God, it was just all like minor stuff, but it was a lot. And then we were in a trailer and he came in and he was like, yeah, and I just wanted to say something. And I was like, oh God, what is it now? And he's like, I just want to thank you because I looked around today and I saw how many people were here. And I realized, wow, she keeps answering my phone calls, but all these other people are probably calling her too. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm about to start crying.
That'll do it. Hey, here's a wild idea for all your producers out there or up and coming producers. Treat people like people. That'd be,
Wild how many people don't think of that as an option.
Yeah,
my gosh.
That is a recurring thing we have had with our guests. It's just that everybody seems to understand that being a good person really gets you a lot further along in what you do, just if you take the time and do that,
So for new filmmakers out there that may have a solid script and they really want it to get made, like where do they start? Like what's the starting point?
I think a lot of people try to say, oh, I need an agent or manager, I need a producer, but no one's going to care about your movie as much as you, so it's just going to festivals. If you have some cash, doing some kind of short, to show, especially if you want to direct, and just meeting people. It's all about networking and meeting and hustling and, going to, like I said, all the festivals, signing up for like Film Independent or, there's all these great new like roadmap writers and Stage 32 but you'll get out of it what you put into it, right? So you could sign up for an organization, but if you're not going to go to the mixers and take advantage of whatever Zoom meetings, But I mean, that was the cool thing too about living in LA in the beginning, which allowed me to leave. Like LA was the only place, and I think I jumped ahead further than a lot of my colleagues that moved to, or friends that moved to New York, because LA, everyone's in the business. So it's the only place where your entire life could change because you're at, some bar, you're at some party, and so brought an investor, and, New York, everywhere else, you'll have a nice life and more culture. But, you're going to meet people who are journalists or going to law school or doing other stuff. Whereas at least in LA, I think it behooves everyone to live there for at least 6 months if you want to really be in the business. Because the grocery store, everywhere you meet, you're going to meet somebody who knows somebody who's, their son's an agent or whoever. It's all about networking.
Even if it's not a financing thing, I know that just firsthand out here, if you just meet the right person and they happen to own gear or they can help you shoot a thing, they say, yeah, I'll shoot that for you. Right. You can actually make something. Yeah.
No, it's so true. And like in my 20s, I mean, when I started making indie movies, I was also doing commercials. I was directing stuff because people would call. And thankfully, we didn't come from money. So I didn't have the luxury of saying, oh, no, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to do that, which I've heard quite a bit over the years. And I remember this group called and like, hey, we have this commercial and we need a producer. And I was like, oh, it's not a ton of money, and it sounds like a lot of time, but yeah, I'll do it. The time made sense. Well, it ended up being an amazing campaign with Betty White. And I shot commercials with her and print ads with her and had a blast, and it was just those little things like you have to be open to. Yeah, I'll do it. Who cares? Oh, you have a friend that wants to go shoot a short film on a weekend. Yeah, go. You never know who you're going to meet.
Now, you mentioned earlier that at one point you were working on the Paramount lot, which is, where they shot, what you said is the movie that kind of got you in to the industry, with Rear Window. And Rear Window was, massive stage, big technological achievement with set design and production. Kind of to parallel that to you, what do you think are some of your biggest technical achievements in production? And is there anything that you may not have done yet, but you still really have on your like big producer bucket list?
A good question. I did a big action movie with China that Justin Lin and his company produced. Okay. And it started as a small, fun comedy with like a couple stunts, and it turned into a massive, what stunt don't we have in this movie that we can do? And Mike Gunther was the stunt coordinator, who's brilliant and directing now. And yeah, that was fascinating. Oh yeah, we're going to, T-bone a car. We're going to throw people off roofs. So that was really cool to experience like the whole stunt of it all, and lots of VFX. I have a movie that's going to shoot in Italy and Serbia and probably Greece. And so looking forward to that, doing some international. And it's already been cool, like scouting and seeing just the comparison of the crew. Like Serbia reminds me, it's like an Eastern Europe version of Puerto Rico. Like when I landed, I was like, oh, this reminds me when I first came to Puerto Rico. They got crews ready,
they got tax breaks, all that.
Everyone's so nice and sweet and wants you to shoot there and just welcoming and, let's go to lunch and open like a really nice, expensive, but one of the best wines you've ever tasted. Just like introduce you to their culture and, So yeah, that's been really cute.
So speaking of wines, I'm so glad you brought it up. What are the differences or similarities between producing a movie and producing a premium cocktail line?
I think I'm starting to annoy my co-founders by referencing a lot that I was like, oh, this reminds me in film, It's the exact same thing. It's the same people, the same mentality, the same people meaning the same personalities in various jobs. But it's just, instead of hawking a movie, you're selling a product. The more interesting thing for me doing this too is, with a movie, you work on it for so long. Like, I've had the movie I'm shooting this summer in Puerto Rico, I've had for at least 7 years. It's a beautiful script. And, who knows what's going to happen with it? I've been down that road before, where you finally get the movie made and you're so excited, and then boom, it just gets dumped. It gets picked up, it airs for a week in 10 theaters or something, and that's it. And you're like, wow, I worked all that time and that's the end of it. Whereas at least with this, it's a product, and you can see it, you can touch it, you can drink it, and you can, if it doesn't work in one state or one city, that's fine. I'm going to jump and take it to another one. But that's been the same attitude I've had on this too, is like, okay, it really is about the grassroots and getting the word out, and that's going to be what helps sell it. Just like a lot of indie movies. Look at My Big Fat Greek Wedding. That's a great example of a movie that wasn't going to have that success, and then they started calling every church and Greek organization and doing the grassroots marketing, and everyone knows that movie.
Well, I kind of glossed right into it, but so you have a premium cocktail line, Art and Rev.
Sure do.
Please tell me about, how did that happen? First of all, how did you get into that?
Ash Christian. I was in New York. My wife, this was 2019. She was at Mount Sinai interning, and I was going to a meeting that I wanted him to come to at the end of a day. And he's like, hey, after this, I have to go meet this woman, Jody. She has a movie she wants to do. She's a lawyer, but she's been developing this movie. You should come crash this meeting. And I was like, oh, let me see when my wife gets off work. And she was going to be working late. So I was like, sure, I'll crash your meeting. And we ended up talking about her movie, which she ended up shooting. And you can now, it's called Arranged Love, and you can find it on NBC.com. And I wasn't part of it, but she ended up shooting it. But as we're talking, she was saying her other passion is the ready-to-drink market. And this is 2019, before it really exploded. And she had gone down the road of exploring it. And that's when everyone thought you had to do it in a pouch. Mm-hmm. So... And she had the wrong partner. She had the wrong bad experiences and realized pouches weren't the thing. So put a pin in it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, because I feel like that's what I do all the time. I'm constantly putting together circus and parties and rap parties and kickoff parties and cocktail things and trying to make everyone feel appreciated. And that would be fun to do, like a cocktail line. I don't know anything about it. And then that year I was on a panel at South by Southwest and was meeting some people at like one of the main strips where all the bars are. And it was so crowded, you couldn't get a drink. And I was like, why aren't there like vending machines here with booze? Like you can drink on the streets here. And there was like a little tub of some ready to drinks in ice. And I tried one. I was like, this is a hangover in a can. And I called her and I'm like, yeah, why isn't there like a better ready to drink? And so Ash and I ran off and shot Chick Fight. We come back and I still am thinking about it. And in that time, my old intern, so film has led to this whole experience. My old intern was like, oh, you want to do that? You should meet my friend Megan. She does marketing branding for various groups. And we met Megan, and she was completely right. She goes, I think the ready-to-drink market's going to follow the craft beer craze, where everyone comes out with one. The big players, there's going to be, the indie versions, and we should study like craft beer, who succeeded, who failed, why, how they were marketed. And then the world shut down. This was 2020. So we took that experience to really study the market as best as we could. And we didn't have the flavors now. We felt like we had a good idea of what was missing, but we didn't have the flavor house. So we hired one, which was, we said, we don't want the sugary juice. We don't want the added sugar. And they sent out 3 different samples of what we were talking about. That was disgusting. So we put a pin in it. And then 50 Cent calls with Neil Carian and says, do you want to go to Atlanta to shoot this show BMF? And I was like, that sounds amazing. And my friend Rhiannon was doing a commercial This is when everyone thought things were picking up. And then, of course, everything got pushed, COVID. Rhiannon was like, hey, I know you're going to Atlanta and I might shoot a commercial there. I need some crew. And we just started talking. I started telling her about this. She goes, oh, you should meet my boyfriend's friend. He's this crazy mixologist flavor guy in Minneapolis and, knows everything there is to know about flavors. I was like, yeah, I'd love to meet him. And that was our fourth partner, Nick. And in that time, he was kicking off starting a distillery with a bunch of guys called Earl Giles in Minneapolis. And we went there. We'd started doing it over Zoom. We were like, here's the 4. You start with your base liquor. We're like, we want a gin, a vodka, a whiskey. We thought we wanted a tequila. We're now doing a tequila, but at the time it was, that adds a little bit it makes it complicated. So we did gin, vodka, whiskey, and rum. And we had an idea of what we wanted the drinks to be. And then he helped guide us because he could talk to you for hours of the history of juniper and you name any flavor. These guys have a whole lab and apothecary, 400 extracts and elixirs. And so we did it all on Zoom with the little scientific pipettes. We each got, and he would FedEx these little vials of extracts. So you'd have like a FedEx of like little, and I'm shooting in Atlanta, BMF. We're going to Detroit. Then I was doing Fantasy Island in Puerto Rico. So I'm thinking everyone in the hotel that sees this, like the cleaning people must think I'm like some crazy drug dealer. So it looked really bizarre.
You're Breaking Bad in your hotel room is right,
exactly.
What you're doing.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So we did it all on pipettes, and then we met in Minneapolis, and he'd created them in the same drinks and like the huge vats and did some adjustments. And then we ended up investing in the distillery that we're now all partners in and just released these 4 drinks. They came out right before Christmas in 3 states. We wanted to try it out, right? Everyone's like, well, don't you want to be out in New York and LA? And I was like, yeah, but I kind of want to learn a little more about the business before that. And we had a lot of interest out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, Missouri, and Kansas. So we're there now. And then we just came out online a week ago today nice. That we're selling to 40 states. And then we have about 13 more states we're going to roll out to. And then we have a celebrity brand that we're going to launch in April.
And if there was ever a time where people needed a ready-to-drink cocktail, it would be during COVID, right? So that's the time.
Well, yeah, we just wanted to do it. We make everything but the whiskey at the distillery. We're starting to do whiskey, but that takes a lot longer. But everything's premium liquor, high-quality ingredients. We use all extracts, elixirs, no juice, and high ABV. You'd need to drink a few like 3.5 watered down seltzers to have the value you get in one of our drinks. So nice. It's a real drink. And then tailored for, you're going to a concert, festival. And we have a vending machine partner, so we're ready to do that one.
You've finally answered that question you had. Just there you go. That's awesome.
And then we're going to start doing we own a lot of IP, so we're going to start shooting a bunch of branded content. One interesting thing, I've met a couple people in the alcohol industry who were in film. And the one thing that they kept saying, and I completely agree with, that I've experienced in the last 1.5 2 years doing this, is how supportive the alcohol industry is. Like even competitors, like we're brand new. We're not scaring, anybody yet.
Well, I hear there's a lot of support groups for the alcohol industry. So,
yes. But we're not scaring anyone as far as like, oh, we have a new brand out. But so many competitors are like, oh, I'll introduce you to our tequila provider, our can vendor. But everyone is so nice and the entertainment industry is not always like that. It's like, sign this NDA, sign this form before I introduce you to so-and-so you can't poach them. And I get all that. People have been burned, but it's sad.
You've just launched. I mean, if it's brand new, it's getting out there. If it takes off, is there any chance that you just be like, bye, Hollywood?
No, I mean, it's nice. And I know I have the luxury of dabbling in both. Launching a beverage brand is 24/7 and it's absolutely no joke, especially when and it's the same thing. At first I was like, God, this is so much work. And, do we hire somebody for this? But it's interesting to also have to be the one to learn oh, there are different can vendors. Are we printing? Is it sleeves? What's the difference? What's the price difference? So it is funny how it's been mimicking my first indie movies where I had to be so involved in everything. And I'm glad to, because then that's how you know and you don't hopefully get screwed, right? Mm-hmm. So that's been fascinating. But no, I think having the luxury of being able to do both, would be lovely.
Do you think there's an importance to people that are in this industry? Should they be diversifying what they work on? And
everyone, no matter what your industry is, entertainment or not, should always diversify 100%. There's nothing guaranteed. So yeah, if you come from money and have the luxury of picking and choosing, wonderful. But otherwise, yeah, diversifying, doing commercials. Because again, you just never know who you're going to meet, who's going to lead you either back to the path you want to be on or something completely different and new. But yeah, always diversify. I mean, I think anyone in finance will tell you that too. Like don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Do you see anything in the future of producing that, just the way the industry is changing? I mean, between COVID and things going straight to streaming now, at the beginning of COVID, Warner Brothers did that move where they were like, everything's coming out on streaming. I mean, is there any trends right now that you see that are shifting the industry in a way that people may need to consider moving forward now? Like how things are getting made, anything like that?
No, I mean, I'm sure there'll be something new tech, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about what's the good story that's relatable and universal. And I think it's just, having your eye on that. Going back to Quinceañera, nobody knew who those people, the cast for the most part, they were fairly newcomers. And yeah, we won both awards, the jury and the audience at Sundance, just because it was a good story and we cast the right actors. So there's something to be said about that. And I think, you're looking at movies that are selling big at Sundance right now too. And people just want good stories. And the trick of paying some huge star millions of dollars for a few days or a week's work to be the face on the box I think people know that that's like a gimmick and stuff now. It's just hard. Like everyone has to make a living and the union rates go up every year, but then we as producers keep getting told that the budgets need to stay the same or go down. And, I would joke to an executive all the time. I knew I grew up in the Boston public school system, so my math might not be the best, but this isn't adding up. It just doesn't make sense. No. But that's how you do those tricks of double shooting and just figuring out how to break stuff up. But what's sustainable, I guess,
Well, before we let you go, I have one more question I want to ask. Are you still a member of the Academy?
Yeah, in both. Yeah, for the Oscars and the Emmys. Well, Ash and I won an Emmy for a web series that Laura Lee Bell wrote and directed. That was amazing because you can apply for daytime Emmys if you air on the web, which we found out that year. So that was crazy. And then we won. And then the Academy, I was in Puerto Rico in a trailer. We called it the Spice Girls trailer. So it must have been during startup because Frances, our local producer, would always joke, we had 100 and something locations in 60 or 70 days. She's like, and it was all females and the production team. She's like, we're like the Spice Girls, we're on tour, So we had this bus. And it was crazy. And I get this email, it was super early in the morning, that said, welcome to the Academy, kid. And I was like, what? It seemed like spam. And then I was like, but then it kind of bothered me. A couple hours went by and I'm like, what was that? And then I looked. And then as you click through and I'm like, God, maybe now I'm being, there's going to be a virus in my computer.
It's a phishing email.
Yeah. And then you signed up and then you got the alert. And then an hour later or something, the Hollywood Reporter and all the trades posted who was invited that year. And I was like, oh, okay, this is real. And then, I went to the party in New York and that was really cool. I don't know to this day who put me up or how that came about.
Well, that's incredible. Maybe we'll find out now.
You're there. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. And it was nice being in New York for a few months and taking advantage of all of it. But again, you could take advantage of it. You go to the screenings and there's 4 people in there, because it's during the day. But then the actors are there and, directors. And it was a lot of fun.
Well, Anne, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on with us here. What do you have next? Where can people find you if they want to see what you're up to?
Yeah, no. Well, if you want to buy cocktails, www.artandrev.com or follow us on Instagram. And then, I think my email, everything's on IMDb. But I have a movie shooting in Serbia and Italy called Harvest with a lovely writer-director, Paul Kampf. And then with a group called Catalyst. They financed 6 movies by female writer-directors, and we are the last one. We got pushed, because of the SAG strike. So we're going to shoot that in Puerto Rico in June with an amazing actress who I'm not allowed to say yet because we haven't broken it in the press. And this great director, Tamika Miller, is doing that. And then I co-wrote a script with Sherry O'Terry from Saturday Night Live, and it's a dramedy, more of a comedy, loosely based on both our lives growing up in dysfunctional, crazy Catholic families. And we're hoping to shoot it in Pittsburgh. She's from Philadelphia, and modeling it a lot after her mom and what she went through. So we're hoping to shoot that this summer and pitching some TV and got some more movies. We shall see. And I'll hopefully be calling you for some VFX help or whatever you're doing. I should be asking you, what do you...
what am I doing?
Is that turning into your side hustle? Yeah.
Hey, you're on the side hustle right now. But thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on with us, and we're looking forward to trying out some premium cocktails there. No.
I love it. Thank you. No, thank you guys. This was fun, and it felt a little like therapy. So thank you for the questions.
I feel like I needed a drink after that conversation. Not in like a bad way, but in like a, she made those drinks sound really good.
It sounds delicious.
It sounds great. And who doesn't want to, like, it sounds sarcastic when I say who doesn't want a canned cocktail, but I mean it genuinely. Like it sounds like it'd be a fun thing.
Yeah. So I had a blast having that conversation with her. And it was great to just catch up with her. I mean, that's one of the things I love about us doing this is it's just a great excuse for us to talk to friends and hear more about their stories and see that everybody's path is totally different. Like coming into this industry, there's no one way to do it, and she's absolutely killing it. But Logan, tell the people where we can find you.
I'm findable. I'm on Twitter at FilmGuy89. I'm on Instagram at FilmGuy1989. You can also find me on YouTube. I have realized this year is my 4-year anniversary of doing at-home table reads. So there's over 200 videos I'm now realizing for the entirety of Shutdown. That's just me and friends being complete doofuses, yourself included.
I did a couple of them and it was great. And dude, absolutely. People need to check that out. I mean, you've got a treasure trove of content there.
Everything from Muppet Matrix to Muppet Great Gatsby, Muppet Princess Bride. There's more than just Muppet content, but there's a lot of Muppet content. So,
well, I mean, what else? What other content would we want?
That's really a good point. The world needs more Muppets.
And people can find me at VFX2Go on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, but I'll eventually post something there. I don't know. And Logan, did you know that we have a .com?
I did as of 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. It's HollywoodUnveiled.com. You can find Hollywood Unveiled on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook now. And that's it. You don't need that many fingers. No.
Yeah, that's it. I already won too many. Anyway.
All right. Well, one of these days we'll figure out how to end this show. But until next time, I've been Jake.
I've been Logan.
And we'll go with that.
Sure. So. That's as good a way to end it as any.
I'll take it.